What's going on, everybody, and welcome to day 16 of our Juniper Networking series. In today's video, we'll be talking about LLDP, also called Link Layer Discovery Protocol. So LLDP operates at layer 2 of our OSI stack, and it does this by sending frames to its directly connected neighbor. These frames are called LLDP DUs. These LLDP DUs advertise the identity and also the capability of the device that is sending the information. So we're going to see information advertised such as the IP address of the device, the MAC address of the device, the actual device model that this device is running, the firmware of the operating system that it is running. So we're going to be able to get a lot of information if LLDP is enabled. So often we see LLDP being used to build out the network topology. Maybe we have a new network administrator that has not worked with a device before, and they want to see all of the directly connected network devices. Well, we may do a show LLDP to be able to see all of our directly connected devices and be able to build out a mental or even a visual network diagram and then go from there. LLDP is vendor agnostic, so you can enable this protocol on Juniper. You can enable it on Cisco. Cisco has a proprietary protocol that you may have heard of if you come from a Cisco background. It is called CDP, or Cisco Discovery Protocol. So in this video though, we're going to be focusing on LLDP. So without further ado, let's hop into this lab. So while I was setting up the lab, I had another perspective come into my head, and I wanted to share it with you guys. I went on ahead and connected our two switches together with my OM3 LT to LT multi-mode fiber right here. But I know I shared with you guys the benefits that LLDP can have within our networks, but sometimes we have to look at it from the other side of the coin. So let's say, and I'm going to give you guys an example. So sometimes in our enterprise environments, we have devices outside of our administrative domain. For example, let's say our ISP. We do not have administrative control a lot of times over our ISP devices. Or maybe you have a big enterprise and you have another company and they have devices within the network closet and you have to connect those devices together. Well, sometimes you do not want to share with that outside organization everything that's going on when it pertains to LLDP. Like I said, a lot of information is sent. So they're going to be able to see the version of OS that you're running on your switch or your network device. They're going to be able to see host names. They're going to be able to see the exact device that you have. So it's a lot of information that is sent. So sometimes you may be like, hey, I do not want to send this information. So in that case, you would disable LLDP so they will not advertise that information outside of your administrative domain. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into our lab. So the first thing that I want to do is see if LLDP is enabled on this switch. So let's do a show LLDP detail. And right now we can see that LLDP is disabled. We can see the advertisement interval, and we can see a lot more statistics right here as well. Now this very well might be your configuration. You may not want LLDP to be enabled because that neighboring device is going to be able to get a lot of information about your device. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and enable LLDP as our first step. So to do that, we want to do an edit and we want to do a delete protocols LLDP disable. So, and then let's go ahead and do a commit as well. So before this lab started, I actually did a disable on LLDP. So now I want to delete the command that I ran to shut LLDP off. All right, that commit was successful. So now let's do a run show LLDP detail again. And now we can see that LLDP is enabled. So the next thing that we want to do is enable LLDP to start sending out those frames that we talked about, those LLDP DUs. So to enable LLDP, you can enable it on all interfaces, or you can specify the interface that you want to enable that LLDP on. In this case, I am going to enable it on our G010. So that is this fiber connection. So to do that, we want to do a set protocols LLDP We want to do an interface of GE010. Hit enter there. And let's do a commit. Alright, that commit was successful as well. So now let's rerun that run show LLDP details command. And now we can see the interface is appearing up under that command. So we can see that LLDP is enabled. We can see the destination MAC address. We can see our neighbor count, which is currently 0. But that is going to change once we enable LLDP on our bottom switch. So now let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and hop onto our bottom switch and run some commands, and also go ahead and set up LLDP on that switch. Alright, so we're plugged into our bottom switch now. Let's go ahead and do a run show LLDP details over here. And we can see on this switch as well that LLDP is disabled. Let's do a run show LLDP neighbor. So we are not getting any output, so we do not have any neighbors, and that is because LLDP is disabled on this switch. So let's enable it. Let's do a delete protocols LLDP and disable. Hit enter there, and let's do a commit. Alright, and now let's go ahead and enable LLDP on that interface. So let's do a set protocols LLDP interface, and we want to enable it on that G010 interface. Hit enter there, and let's do a commit. So now let's rerun that command. Let's do an exit, and let's do a show LLDP neighbors. And now we have a neighbor. We can see the system name of that neighbor. We can see our local interface that neighbor is connected off of. We can see the chassis ID and port information for our neighbor switch. So that is just some of the information that you can get when LLDP is enabled. Let's also rerun our show LLDP details command. And now we are able to see our neighbor count has incremented to 1. We can see the destination MAC address of our neighbor as well. Okay, so another command that I really like to run, and is the one for me that gives me the most details about the neighbor, is this command. It is the show LLDP neighbor interface, and then you specify the interface. So GE010 in this case. And now we can see a lot more statistics about our neighbor. We can see the MAC address right here. We can see the system name, the port description of our neighbor. A lot of the local information is located right here. So this is to the local switch. It says local information right here. All right. We can see the system capabilities, the system description. So we can see that it is a Juniper Network EX3300 48 port switch. We can see the OS version that it's running. We can see a lot of information. The system capabilities, whether it is a router, a switch, a SRX. So it's a lot of information that you can get. System or organization information. Just a lot of information that somebody can glean from just running that show LLDP command. So one thing I wanted to show you guys is how to disable LLDP if you no longer want it to run. So let's do an edit, and let's do a delete protocols LLDP, and we want to specify the interface. And you can do a all interface option as well. That is down here at the bottom. So if you do not want to do a interface specific, you can do a all, and that'll specify all of the interfaces. So disable LLDP on all interfaces, and do a delete protocols LLDP disable. Oh, I should do a set. Sorry about that. So let me go back. We want to do a set protocols LLDP disable to disable LLDP. Hit enter there and do a commit. Alright, that commit was successful. Now if I go back and do a run show LLDP details again, we have disabled LLDP. So now let's plug back into our top switch and see if we're able to see information about this bottom switch now that LLDP is disabled on the bottom switch. All right, we're back on that top switch. Now let's do a run show LLDP detail. Oops, detail. And now we can see our neighbor count has dropped back down to 0. And that is because we disabled LLDP on that bottom switch. Another command that I want to look at before we get up out of here is let's rerun that run show LLDP neighbor interfaces. And we want to do that GE010 again. And now we can see we're not getting any output, and that is because we disabled LLDP on that bottom switch. So I appreciate you guys tuning in to day 16 of our Juniper Networking series. I hope to see you in day 17. But until then, peace out.